everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Michael Regina. I am the author and illustrator of the all-ages horror graphic novel The Sleepover, and I actually don't talk about it super much, but I also wrote a graphic novel series called Adamsville, which I self-published. It was 3 volumes, and you can pick it up on Amazon or my website. But yeah, if you want to see where I started, there's this whole thing out there that you may not have heard about. So I wanted to kick off what I think is going to be a series of videos talking about this whole role-playing thing, but I want to talk about it specifically towards writers. Not so much that you can't do this otherwise, but I want to talk about using role-playing games and solo role-playing to learn how to write. And what I want to put together here is a series of videos that shows why I think this is awesome, why I think it will help you be a writer, and actually show you how I use this to create and craft an adventure that we will do together on camera. I'll do some in the background and maybe do some illustrations and stuff along the way. Hopefully this will be really helpful to people who are learning how to write or just people who enjoy telling stories and looking for a way to maybe change things up, or maybe this is something none of you had even considered. I'm sure there's lots of people who play role-playing games, had seen this whole solo role-playing thing and thought maybe that's weird and what would I do that for? I have really been enjoying it. It's a great creative exercise, and even a few games that I'm playing now, we don't run with a GM. We just do this process with 1 or 2 people, and we create a story together. And it's fun because we can all do it together and we get to flex our creative skills and so on. And so I figured it was time to talk about how to use this to write so that I could formulate some of my thoughts and put it into something and hopefully help some of you as well. So that's the point of the video, and let's talk about it. Let's go all the way back to the beginning for me as a creator. As I mentioned in some of my videos, I grew up an artist primarily. I wrote because I wanted to draw comics, and I didn't have any writer friends who were giving me scripts, and I often would want to make sure that the story I was telling was something that I particularly loved, and so I always kind of wanted my hands in the pot, but I didn't know how to write well. And as I've gotten older, I've obviously had to learn how to write. I've been able to be published a couple of times, and I love the process of writing. But writing can be a very sort of stressful process, especially if it's something you haven't been honing as a craft your whole life. And I often feel like I'm sort of flailing around looking for things or getting frustrated with writer's block or whatever the case might be. Then my recent discovery of playing role-playing games in the last year has sort of opened up this realm of creative improvisation and learning how to tell a story in sort of a very chaotic way with a group of people at the table, and going, wait, I can make up stories like this and we can create adventures, and learning that stories is primarily creating conflict, watching characters react to conflict, right? And I started thinking, well, what if I took the knowledge I've gained as a writer in learning how story structure works and learning how to piece together an adventure or whatever, and what if I took that and I took role-playing games and the sort of structure and randomness that the game creates for you within its rule sets, and I actually tried to use it to tell a story. When I went online and I started looking up things, I actually found not a whole lot of resources, at least on YouTube, of people talking about this and how that they were using it to tell stories. I think most people use solo role-playing as a way to play a game, which at its core it is. I'm not really here to argue sort of is solo role-playing a creative writing exercise or a game or whatever. I'm here to say that I am using it as a creative exercise, and I'm using the game to help drive the creative exercise. So that's the point of this video series, is we're going to take a role-playing game. I'm going to talk with you about how to use it to write and tell your own story, and you can use this to do kind of whatever you want to do creatively, and hopefully have the structure of this game to help you with some of those areas where maybe you don't feel as confident. So let's get into that. So how do we get this whole thing started? Well, it all starts with, what kind of story do you want to tell? Are you trying to tell a fantasy adventure? Well, then there's a game out there obviously for you. There's plenty of fantasy role-playing games out there, not the least of which is Dungeons and Dragons, but there's games like Pathfinder, Dungeon World, gosh, I could keep going. There's so many. This is obviously sort of the largest genre of storytelling. If you're trying to maybe tell a horror game, you have Call of Cthulhu or Vaesen or the Alien RPG or Monster of the Week. Or if you're trying to play a mystery, you have, again, Monster of the Week, Brindlewood Bay. These are the games I've been playing, at least. I know there's tons out there. And so the first thing to do is say, what kind of story do I want to tell? And then look for a game that helps you tell that story. It could be any game, because almost every RPG could be bent to fit any genre, but however, most games are built within their genre to better articulate the feel of it. It's why things like horror can work in Dungeons & Dragons, but maybe isn't the best rule system to use for it if that's your goal. If you're trying to tell a more horrific fantasy game, I might recommend Shadow of the Demon Lord, or recommend the Lord of the Rings game, The One Ring. Even though it's so setting specific, there's nothing to say you couldn't take those base rules, build your own fantasy characters, and tap into some of the more horrific and corrupting sides of its rule set. Or if you really love Dungeons and Dragons, there's the role-playing 5e and Lord of the Rings edition that Free League put out that you can check as well. But starting with it, you got to do some research, pick a game. Maybe you already have a game that you love, and if not, pick a game. For me, I've actually picked a game. I've been wanting to learn how to play this for a little bit, and I figured, hey, why not? Let's build an adventure and learn to play the game at the same time. So I've chosen Vaesen from Free League. Vaesen is essentially a Nordic horror game. You create investigators who investigate folkloric monsters and creatures and that sort of thing. And I think this game looks awesome and great. And thank you to Free League for sending me a review copy of the game. But I wanted to do a formal review for it, but I will do a formal review for it, but I also want to take the opportunity to use this game to create a solo adventure and show how I can use this to write a story. So my game of choice is Vaesen, to tell a horror mystery story. I will probably change some setting information and stuff, mostly because I want to use its rule set to tell my own story, and I've not quite decided what I'm going to do yet. That's part of the fun of solo playing. I'm going to sit down and basically have no idea where this is going. We're going to create some characters and go from there. So pick your game. For me, it's Vaesen. The next thing you're going to need to do is pick your GM emulator. So this is the system that you're going to use to help play the game without having a game master. The big one, or the big guy on the playing field for this, is the Mythic Game Master emulator. It's the one I'm primarily going to use, and I'm also going to use random tables found within Vaesen to make sure that some of the prompting and stuff that I use would move the story in that direction that's appropriate for the setting. But the Mythic Game Master emulator is a great one. There's tons out there, but I'm going to specifically highlight that one. Some games have their own built-in solo game emulators, so depending on the game, there might already be something out there. Like for the One Ring, there's the Strider mode. For the Free League's recent Dragonbane, it comes with its own solo mode. And then lots of other games use similar systems. So just got to do a little bit of research and figure it out. But the Mythic Game Master emulator is great. And they actually have a one-page Mythic Game Master emulator that's only like $3 on Drive-Thru RPG that I used and started with. And I loved it so much that I went ahead and bought the full book. So I'll be using the full book plus the one-pager and the rule book to generate my adventure. Other tools you're going to need. You're going to need some dice. Obviously, dice that are specific to the game. For Vaesen, it primarily uses, or basically only uses, D6 or six-sided die, your sort of standard cube dice that you would see in Yahtzee or whatever the case might be. But depending on your game, you may use some of the other polyhedral dice, so you're going to want to make sure you have them. If you don't have them, there's plenty of free ones you could pull up on the internet or get in an app store that you could use, but I really like doing things in a tactile way, so I'll primarily be using real dice. You'll also want to have a notebook so that you can keep track of your adventures. I buy these little cheap notebooks that I like using for taking down notes, or I'll probably actually use in this one, since I want to be able to share it with you all, some sort of electronic word processor, so I'll probably be using Google Docs or something, but some place that you're going to keep and track your adventure, take notes, because here's what you're going to be doing as a writer. You are using this process to build an outline. That's what we're primarily doing. We're using solo role-playing to build the outline that you will then use to turn into a story. The great thing about this is you get to be an outliner. There's always this argument between, are you a pantser or an outliner? We're going to do both. We're going to build an outline through pantsing it. Pantsing. So I have no idea where the story is going. I'm going to try my best to not know where the story is going, but I'm going to use my understanding of storytelling, and I'm going to use the rule system to build an outline that has that random sort of unknown of the solo system to build and generate a bullet point outline that I could then use to turn into a story. And then at the end of all that, I plan to share maybe a chapter or two from the story that I used to generate this to show you how to bring it all together. So what can you expect going forward? Like I said, I'm going to try to put this together into a series, and the great news is that I've recorded all of them, I've edited all of them, and they will be coming out on a regular basis. So hopefully this will be a 3 to 4 part video series that you can use to take yourself on this own process for yourself, see how I do it, and follow along with me to build this out. So if you're gonna go along this adventure with me, your homework between now and next week when the next video posts is to pick your rule system and spend some time reading it. Make sure you're not only reading the character creation and the basic rules of the system so that you know how to play it, but the important thing too, to learn how to structure your story, to learn story structure within this game's elements, is to read the GM sections when it talks about how to create whatever adventure it is that you're going on. If you're playing some sort of fantasy adventure, read the sections on how to create that adventure. If you're creating a mystery, read how it creates mysteries. We're going to use the structures within these games to help us tell the story well. So again, that's one of the reasons why I love these tools. They give you actual writing tips. Man, it's so great. So many people tell you if you're going to write, you need to learn how to create characters, you need to learn how to create conflict, you need to learn story structure, you need to learn how to do all these things. And these games just give it to you. So take some time, pick your game, spend some time reading it, be ready for next time to get going. And if you have time, go ahead and start creating your character. So that's the homework between now and then. I really hope this will be helpful for you all. I think it's going to be helpful for me too. And we'll see what kind of, what sort of story comes out of this. It should be a lot of fun. As I do this, if you are following along, I would absolutely love for you to send me videos of your adventure, or not videos, let me know you're doing it, is what I'm saying. And down in the description below, you'll have a link to my email list that you could sign up for and get a PDF that will help you have a checklist of all the things I sort of talked about in this video to get you prepared to go on this solo adventure of writing with me and be prepared to outline a story using role-playing games and solo role play to help you become a better writer, and hopefully me become a better and more productive writer too. So looking forward to this adventure. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully it's not a crazy disaster, and I'll see you in the next video real soon.